Hey, what's up YouTube? Wicked here with another Genshin Impact character review. Today we'll be going over the new 4-star character Thoma, who was just released with the Hu Tao banner. He's a really interesting character mechanically, so I want to get right into it. Thoma is a Pyro Polearm defensive support character, much like Jin Yan, but has uses that differ him from her type of utility. He's a bit more consistent in applying shields provided you use him properly, and while his skills don't scale too highly, it leaves him room to build him in other ways instead of focusing on the traditional damage stats. Personally, I don't have this character at the moment, and as much as I want him and will try to grab him, I am trying to actively avoid Hu Tao as I don't really have the need for her at the moment, which leaves me in a tough spot if figuring out if I should bother trying to grab a copy of him or wait for a future banner. Because he's a 4-star, he's also getting added to the permanent banner after the Hu Tao banner is up, so there's that too. Hopefully he surprises me sooner rather than later. Now let's start off with his elemental skill, Blazing Blessing. Thoma delivers a flaming kick that grants him a HP scaling shield. Now the shield works a bit differently compared to other shielding characters. The shield is scaled off of HP, but also stacks the more blazing barriers are piled on top of it up to a certain max amount. Now this doesn't actually work with his elemental skill alone, and that's where his burst comes in. His elemental burst, Crimson Oyuroi, slices his foes dealing AoE pyro damage and applies the Scorching Oyuroi effect. This effect provides the active character to trigger Fiery Collapse on their normal attacks, dealing AoE pyro damage, as well as summoning a blazing barrier. This is what will cause the stacking effect of his shield from his elemental skill. Now the barriers created by the burst are much weaker than his elemental skill, but they do stack on top of it, providing you with a much better shield overall when it triggers constantly. It does have a 1-second cooldown before a new shield procs, so it's important to keep that in mind. What's great about this is that any character that's attacking can trigger this, which makes Thoma a really great support as you don't need to keep him on the field to improve the shielding capabilities that the unit provides, on top of triggering some pyro damage that you can use for reactions or just some extra damage. Not only that, but his first ascension skill, Imbricated Armor, grants a stackable buff that increases your shield strength by 5% every time a blazing barrier is created or refreshed up to a maximum of 5 stacks, which improves the shield even more. His second ascension ability, Flaming Assault, increases the Fiery Collapse damage from his burst by 2.2% of his max HP, which is something that's really good to have to not only increase his support damage output, but allows you to focus on increasing his HP to obtain a better shield. Lastly, his utility passive grants him a 20% chance to catch double the fish when fishing in Inazuma. Honestly, unless you're going for the polearm weapon to catch, I don't really see much use out of this unless MiHoYo decides to provide us with a slightly more meaningful fishing update, as right now there isn't really much use to fishing other than attaining that polearm weapon. When it comes to his constellations, he does have some very useful quality of life upgrades locked behind them, so getting multiple copies of Thoma is pretty beneficial. His C1 allows any character that gets hit other than Thoma himself to decrease Thoma's elemental and burst skills by 3 seconds. This makes it a bit easier to re-trigger those skills, allowing you to make sure those shields stay up a bit more consistently. What's great about it is that it triggers when he's off the field as well, which further cements him as a decent off-field support unit. But sadly, it does have a 20-second cooldown, so you won't see this activating more than once per use of his burst. His C2 increases the duration of his burst by 3 seconds, allowing you to re-trigger his shields to apply more stacks to help you reach the cap, while at the same time allowing you to trigger more Fiery Collapses for more sub DPS and reactionary damage. His C3 and C5, while the same as other characters, increases the skill levels of your skills, allowing higher scaling of shields and damage, so it's pretty useful to have in general. His C4 returns a portion of the energy cost from his burst upon using it, which is great in making sure you have the energy ready when his burst comes off of cooldown. And lastly, his best constellation in my opinion, his C6, which grants a 15% damage buff to your party's normal, charged, and plunging attacks for 6 seconds when a blazing barrier is created or refreshed. This helps increase the damage output of the main DPS unit in your party to help circumvent using a support character, which is pretty useful to say the least. As for his best team comps, because he's a pyro unit, this makes it quite easy to hit the requirement for the pyro resonance, which increases your party's attack. So pairing him with someone like Bennett, Zhang Ling, or even a pyro main DPS like Diluc or Hu Tao is very useful, and recommend to make sure that you can squeeze out every bit of damage that Thoma could help bring. Now, it's hard to really recommend Thoma if you're trying to compare him to someone like Zhongli. He's definitely more obtainable and provides different and niche uses due to being a pyro character, meaning not only does he help for the pyro resonance, but he does protect slightly better versus pyro as the absorption to pyro damage is greater. So using him in a team with like Diluc or Hu Tao as the main DPS, Xingqiu as the support, and Jean to enable elemental shred through Viridis and Hunt could make for a solid team. You could also do something like Raiden Shogun, Mona, Thoma, and Bennett for an overload and super conduct team that provides huge damage buffs to your main DPS Raiden Shogun. Though I do want to mention that Thoma's C6 doesn't trigger with Raiden Shogun, as her burst is considered burst damage and not normal and charge damage. There are really a lot of options available, as building teams around a pyro unit really allow for highly offensive team combinations and doesn't limit your main DPS to a certain type. For artifacts, I would recommend focusing on HP, energy recharge, and then whatever else into damage. Defense isn't necessary, as he isn't on the field very much due to the way his kit works, and you want energy recharge as the cost for his burst is quite high, so you want to make sure you can trigger that as often as possible, as he won't be getting much energy off of the field. Not having enough energy when his cooldown is ready really hurts the team, so you want to make sure that's ready to go as soon as possible. When talking about sets, his best set would probably be Noblesse Oblige, mainly because you want Thoma to provide as much support as possible to the party. Though if you are running Bennett in the party, who usually already runs that, using a 2-piece retracing bolide set with 2-piece of either Tenacity of the Millelith for the extra HP, or a 2-piece Emblem of Severed Fate for the extra energy recharge would be your best options. If you need the energy recharge, use a 2-piece Emblem. If not, use Tenacity to help Thoma hit higher HP numbers to provide a larger shield to the party. The longer your shields can survive, the more you can stack them, allowing you to care less about the damage going around and letting you focus on the damage that you're dealing as much as possible. For his weapons, he sadly doesn't have very many options that are tailored to him, as there is no real HP scaling polearms, and no polearms that provide good effects outside of a few options. For 5-star weapons, Staff of Homa is always good. In fact, it's one of the best weapons for pretty much any polearm user, so it's hard for it to not earn a point here. It increases HP, grants an attack bonus based on your HP, which really helps to increase and scale the lackluster damage Thoma has. Vortex Vanquisher is also a really good option if you're looking to increase shield strength as well as obtaining a substantial attack buff, though this weapon isn't available at the moment until a rerun. For more free-to-play options, something I would like to recommend is the Favonius Lance. This weapon not only provides energy recharge, but crit hits generate additional elemental particles. Now, I don't recommend this weapon if you have a very low crit chance, because if you can't crit, the weapon is pretty much pointless. Outside of that though, there isn't very many options that are suited for him other than maybe the Contain Cross Spear. It's a craftable weapon, and while the Elemental Mastery doesn't really provide much other than some buff to his reaction damage, it does provide some decent energy recharge over time when using his elemental skill. Other than that, you only have 2 slightly more offensive options, which would be the Battle Pass polearm, the Deathmatch, and the weapon obtained by fishing, the Catch. Overall, Thoma is a fairly balanced defensive support unit that can help your team through meaningful utility, piled on by the fact that he's a pyro unit, which does help with resonance as well as powerful reactions. I really do like the character's design as well, even if he does seem like he would be Child's twin or little brother. If you're in the need for a shielding type character, I can't say if he's more or less useful than other shielding type units, but he's definitely something worth considering if you're looking for meaningful shield protection as well as some support and utility for the team. Personally, I would love a few copies of him, but I'm actually trying to avoid Hu Tao, so unfortunately I can't go that far into summoning for him. What about you guys? Are you trying to get Thoma, or are you focusing more on getting Hu Tao and Thoma would be a happy side product? Would you like Thoma at all? Let me know in the comments down below, and I'll see you all in the next one.